Hello and welcome to lesson 11-3. Today we're using line plots to solve problems. We will use line plots to solve problems involving fractions today, and we're on page 425 in the Envision Volume 2 textbook. Solve and share. Miss Earle's class measured the lengths of 10 caterpillars in the school garden. The caterpillars had the following lengths in inches. So if we we would have 10 different lengths here because we have 10 caterpillars. We're going to plot these lengths on the line plot below and then write and solve an equation to find the difference in length between the longest and shortest caterpillars. It's reminding us that we can use tools such as fraction strips, a number line, or paper and pencil to help us subtract. So in order to make our line plot, we need to look at our data. And again, as we mentioned earlier, we need to find the shortest and the longest, or the smallest and the greatest numbers before we can start making our plot. As I look here, I notice that the smallest that I see is 3/4 or 3/4, and then the longest looks to be 1 3/4. So on my line plot, I would need to start at 3/4 or slightly before, and then go to at least 1 3/4. So I'm going to just space these out about so, trying to keep them about the same distance apart. And we'll go ahead and start with the 3/4, our smallest. So we need to look at our denominators, and we see that the smallest fraction is broken into 4 pieces, fourths. So our jumps are going to be by fourths. So 3/4 plus a fourth is 1 whole. Next jump, 1 1/4. 1 2/4, which another name for 1 2/4, remember, is 1 1/2. 1 2/4 plus another fourth is 1 3/4. Plus a fourth would be 2. Plus a fourth would be 2 1/4. Plus a fourth would be 2 1/2, which we've gone way beyond what we need to. But just in helping you create a line, a number line, which will become your line plot, that's what we're looking for. So let's start with 3/4. We're going to check that one as we make our plot. Let's see if there are any more that are 3/4. I like to find the common ones and go ahead and put those in. Here's another 3/4. And I don't see any more. So then we go, let's erase these so that it doesn't get in our way. And I look to see if there are any ones. There's a 1 and another one, so we have 2 at 1. Then we look for the length of 1 1/4. Looks like there's 1 here, another one. So that makes 2 at 1 1/4. 1 3/4. There's 1, there's 2. 1 1/2. There's 1, there's 2. All right, everything's checked off, which means I've plotted everything down here. So as you count, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. There were 10 caterpillars, so I've got all of my data represented down here on my line plot. It says plot the lengths on the line plot, then write and solve an equation to find the difference in length between the longest and shortest caterpillars. So of course my largest number is 1 3/4, which would be my longest caterpillar, 1 3/4. Then my shortest, we'd come back over to the left, would be 3/4. So my equation would be 1 3/4, take away the shortest, and when we subtract, we can take 3/4 away from 3/4. That would give us nothing, which we don't put that 0 there because you'll see why in a minute. And then 1 take away nothing is 1. If we put a 0 there, then it would look like our answer is 10. That wouldn't be possible. The difference between 1 3/4 and 3/4 cannot be 10. So if it's a 0, I mean, if you wanted to put 0/4, that'd be okay, but we know that that's not necessary in the answer. If that was just to let you know that you've subtracted the fraction part, that's fine. We don't want to forget our units, of course, and it says that the lengths are given in inches, so that would be inches here, and of course we don't want to fail to put inches down here when we make our line plot. And up here should have been the title, which would have been caterpillar lengths. And that would be our line plot, and then our equation showing what is the difference between the longest and the shortest caterpillar, and we found that to be 1 inch. We do not need ES because that's not plural. We just know that we're measuring them in inches. All right, how can a line plot be used to find the difference between the greatest and least values? We follow the line plot over to the greatest value where there is something plotted. So we wouldn't go all the way to 2.5 or even over 2 because there's nothing there. Nothing is represented in those numbers. I just happen to put those there with the extra space in my number line, but we don't have anything that long. So we go to the longest represented, which would be the greatest number that has the marking above it. And then we go to the smallest or shortest, and we subtract that to find the difference between the longest and the shortest, or the greatest and the least value. You'll look at 426 with your visual learning video. So we're going to take a peek at 427 to finish up this video by looking at another example. Rowan's class measured the snowfall for 5 days. The line plot shows the heights of snowfall they recorded. How many inches of snow were recorded? What amount of snowfall occurred most often? Find the total number of inches of snowfall recorded. So we've got 1/4, we've got 1 of those. We have 1, 2, 3 at 2/4, 1, 2, 3, 2/4, and we have a 3/4. So when we write all those together to add those up to get the total number. Remember, when we add fractions, we add the numerators to, if all of the denominators are the same, we can do this and we just bring that denominator 4 over and we add the numerators. 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 is 10. So that's 10/4. And we know that 4/4 equals a whole. So we have 4/4 and another 4/4, which would be 8/4 to make 2 whole, which would give us 2/4 left over. So that makes our 2 and 2/4 total. So the amount of snowfall that occurred most often was 2/4 of an inch, because most often, remember, would have the most dots above it, or X's. So the value with the greatest number of dots is the value that occurs most. So we've answered 2 different things here. What is the total amount of snowfall? 2 and 2/4, and the amount of snowfall that occurred most often, the 2/4. That's one we can quickly glance at and see. Now, guided practice, it says, do you understand? Use structure. How could you use the commutative and associative properties of addition to make the addition in another example easier? So remember, with commutative and associative properties, we can just group likes. We can do this. We can move them around. What I see is that I know 2 plus 3 makes 5, and 2 plus 2 plus 1 would be 5. So maybe we do something like that. So 5 plus 5 would give us the 10. There are lots of ways we could use those properties to arrange those in adding to get our 10. Now, do you know how number 2 says, who filled more water balloons over 2 pounds? So that's referring back to what we did not look at, and that's the visual learning video. So we're not going to go through those. What I'll do is I'll just look at independent practice with you quickly and see if get you started on that. This will be your individual work along with a quick check after you watch the visual learning video. So what is the difference in height between the tallest and shortest patients? Keep in mind what we said on the first page, on page 425. We go over to the farthest to the right where we have our plot, and we have 2 here, so this would be our greatest. We go all the way over here. There's nothing at 4 all the way to the right, but we look next door, there is 4 1/4 would be our shortest. So our tallest and our shortest. Remember, the difference is a word that tells us to subtract. It's the answer to a subtraction problem. So we're going to subtract the largest or greatest to or tallest to the shortest. That's a hint for number 4. And then number 5, Oscar says 5 feet is the most common height Dr. Chen measured. 5 feet would be right here. Do you agree or disagree? And then explain. Then that's on 428, you're going to do numbers 8 and 9 using this line plot of heights of high school basketball players in feet. Keep in mind, it says select all that apply. With all of the statements here that are true, you will select. And then if one of the, you'll just select one answer over here. So that is your assignment for today.